Welcome back to the Creating Your Conditions podcast, a podcast dedicated to understanding people's life experiences, the conditions we are given, the conditions we create, and the conditions we have yet to forge. My name is Vin, I use they, them, theirs pronouns, and I am your host. In today's episode, I am interviewing a dear friend of mine named Lem, who is a 30-year-old man born and raised in San Diego, California, but is currently living in the San Francisco Bay Area. He's currently pursuing a career in radio frequency or RF engineering. While his current adventures are in the space field, his prior stunts include tactical radios and power amplifiers. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did conducting it with Lem, and I'll let you get on with it.
What's up, Lem? Welcome to the podcast.
Sweet, thanks for having me.
How's it going today, my friend?
It's going good. A little bit tired. Daylight savings kicked in, and my circadian rhythms got disrupted last night. Had the midnight munchies and had to handle that with a protein bar. So there's that. But we're here now, and that's what's more important.
I feel like eating a protein bar as a munchies item is a lot of self-restraint. Like a protein bar is like such a contained amount of food. If I had a midnight munchies, I would be eating something fried from my freezer and then whatever else I could find in my fridge, maybe bacon.
I understand the sentiment. For me, I don't want to wake up again, right? So I want something that's going to keep me sustained down there and not bother me for the rest of the night.
I respect that. I might keep like a box of protein bars for when I get hungry in random times.
Yeah, I already have one in my house. It's like 25 protein bars from Costco. It's like 20 grams of protein each. So like you're not feeling anything once you have one, and you're not getting back up. And that's exactly what I need.
All right, I'm into it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Lem, welcome and thanks for being here. Why don't we start off with sharing with folks like where you're from and like where you grew up?
Yeah, so I'm from Sunnyside, San Diego. More specifically, I'm from the Rancho Bernardo area. And growing up was good for the most part. Grew up in a academically strict household. Lots of rigor, no clear direction to just do anything except the overbearing need to finish college. And then, yeah, other than that, I had fun going to the beach, skating, and just doing a lot of outdoor general activities. Yeah.
Okay, nice little overview. Let's go in a little more. What was like? Do you have siblings? And what was like your relationship like with your siblings?
Yeah. So I have one sibling right now. He's working for the IRS, and he's younger than me, 28 years old. We butted heads a lot when we were younger. We still do. He's living with my parents in San Diego. I'm up here. Hopefully that'll change in the future where things are a little bit more friendly. But as of right now, that's not really the case.
Hmm. Um, so what did you two butt heads about when you were growing up?
About anything and everything. Sibling rivalry, who's getting more attention, who can do this better, who can do that better, all the usual stuff.
So you guys fought for your parents' attention?
I think so. Yeah. And just in general, trying to be the better brother.
Is that because like your parents, you said rigorous earlier, so like your parents had high expectations of both of you, so did you both like want to meet those kind of things?
Um, Maybe for him, he wanted to be better. I'm more so not a competitive person. I just want to like be the best that I can be with any particular skill, project, or anything that I do. I don't really try to be better than anyone. I'm more interested in like how much I know something and how well I can do it. I guess validation in that sense comes from inside, like a feeling that I actually know how to do this versus other people telling me that like, oh, you know how to do it, you're the best.
Yeah. So where do you think that sense of like um, self validation comes from? Because you just basically compared how a lot of other people require external validation to feel like they're good enough? Where did that come from for you?
I think it came from a lot of things that I've seen growing up where hyper competitive people would always just try to one up each other. And like I would try to participate, but more often than not, I would let my ego get in the way and like they would actually do way better than me and would crush my self esteem. And I realized from a young age that that's kind of like a really bad behavior to invest yourself in. And at the end of the day, being one better than one person may not be enough to pass a class or feel satisfied or do a job, get it done, right? So I look towards myself internally to feel validated with anything that I try to do. Um, it's just something I learned at a young age, and I've kept it ever since.
Mm. Do you think your parents taught you that?
Probably not. Probably not. I think it's something that I had to learn on my own.
Okay, I got you. I got you. I guess you could kind of see that, like, I can see these people competing with each other, and then you tried it for yourself for a little bit. You were like, it doesn't really land right for you.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad it's something that I learned at a young age.
Yeah. Um, what was your relationship like with your parents?
It was there was a lot of things involved with that. For the most part, it was good. I mean, obviously, it is good because I wouldn't be here right now without them. Some downsides were I had a helicopter mom, so she was always vigilant, always watching everything that I do, making sure that I did everything I could to finish college. And my dad was there, but he's off like providing for the family, doing other stuff. So for the most part, like when it comes to the nitty gritty details of figuring how to apply for college or how to do a job or how to navigate the landscapes of being a young adult, it's pretty much left to me to just figure out on my own.
Yeah. Well, we can get into that in a little bit, since I happen to know that you're like first gen in your family, like to be
Hmm.
born in the U.S. and everything. But do you know like your parents' history of like coming to the U.S. and what that looked like?
I vaguely know it. So my mom was a nurse when she was in the Philippines, and my parents both graduated college too. Just to be clear, so she was a nurse, and then I believe my dad enrolled in the U.S. Navy. Enlisted. My apologies. It's not a school. Enlisted in the U.S. Navy, served there for 4 years, and brought my mom over to the U.S.
Did
And
your
my
dad work in
dad,
San Diego?
I'm not sure to be honest with you. I think he may have stayed in San Francisco for a little bit. Yeah. And so my dad, he graduated with a degree in accounting in the Philippines, and he was an accountant for a little bit. But then, like I said, enlisted into the U.S. Navy, did 4 years, and then they both came over to the U.S. and they have both been employed by the USPS. So my dad is now doing a 30-year career at this current time, maybe 31. My mom has been doing it for 15, 16, I believe.
For the Postal Service?
Yes, for the Postal Service.
Okay. And then, so they were already married in the Philippines, right? Before they moved here.
Yes.
Have you been back to the Philippines?
No, not yet. I'm actually thinking about changing that next year. It would be 13 years since I was last ever there. So quite a bit has changed, obviously, since I was last there in 2012. And what I'm most looking forward to is not only just seeing everyone, but there's a group of 5 kids, like 4 boys, 1 girl. They're all around the same age when I first met them. They were like 5 or 6 years old, really young kids, and none of them spoke to me. They just every time I tried to talk to any one of those girls, they didn't say anything, or any one of those boys, kids, they didn't say anything to me. But they kept looking at me, more like they were curious. They just didn't know how to approach me or what to do if I approached them. And those same group of 5 kids are still there, but they've all grown up. I think they're in high school at this point, And so I want to meet those kids again. I want to see how things have changed, like because they've got to be able to speak words now, right? They're in high school. I want to know what they've grown up into and just talk to them about life and just see how they change because I myself have changed quite a bit. I'm no longer the same person I used to be when I was 18.
Are those your cousins, or who are these people?
I'm going to be completely honest with you. I have no idea. Because in the Filipino culture, if you're friendly enough with someone,
That's family.
yeah, that's family right there.
Yeah.
Oh, so is that your cousin? No, that's just our family friend.
Right. But
Yeah,
attends all of the gatherings.
exactly. Which I do admire about the Filipino culture. Like everyone's really friendly. Everyone's super hospitable. It's easy to adopt people into your lives.
Yeah. So when you were 18, was that your only time having been to the Philippines?
No, I had been in the Philippines beforehand, and that was like back in fifth grade. So my return to the Philippines has been marked by decade-long spans.
Mm. And did you hear that?
Sorry.
Oh, okay, no, that was Alex Ford. So I was like, is that gonna come up?
You should cut that part out.
I could cut it. It's fine.
Sweet.
Okay, so you had been to the Philippines in your youth. What was because when you were in fifth grade, you probably don't remember that much. But what stood out to you when you were in fifth grade and when you were 18?
I just remember being how hot it was. That it felt like going into a hot shower every single time I stepped outside. And I remember sticking to one part of my mom's house in Cebu that was air conditioned, and we just never left that room if we didn't have to do anything or say hi to cousins or family or anything like that, or grocery shopping or any sort of adventure. We just stayed in that room, and I didn't want to leave anywhere because everything outside of it melted, including my skin. Bugs were biting me nonstop. It just felt like hell every single time I stepped outside that room. So I remember that, but I was a young kid back in the day, and then at the age of 18, obviously a lot more autonomy, more capable of doing stuff. So got to explore around more, got to say hi to cousins, got to have more and better conversations. So that part was a little bit more enjoyable. Now that I'm 30, where I've got my own career, got my own savings, I can afford to go out and travel, spend some time, hang out. I think my time there is going to be way different, if not the best so far. When I get over to the Philippines.
Yeah, I'm trying to go in February. We should talk about that offline.
Sounds like a plan.
Um, yeah, it'll be interesting. My first time going as an adult was when I was like 24, like right after college, basically, like 23 or something like that, and it was really interesting. Like I hadn't felt the need to go back, for such a long time. And for that time period right after college, I was like, I think it's time for me to like go and see what's over there, like what my family looks like outside of the Facebook posts that I see of them.
Mm-hmm. With your time in the Philippines, what was the most memorable thing?
For that first time as an adult, because I had gone when I was like 5, so even younger than you. It was my last time there. Because we
Yes.
moved from like Italy to the U.S. and then we had to wait for our green card and stuff. And you can't leave the country when you're in that process, or usually start the cycle. Um, so my most memorable thing from like that first trip as an adult was having a birthday party with all my family members there, because all of my birthdays in the U.S. were like my parents and aunt, and then whatever friends I had, you know. So I didn't grow up with like my cousins and my aunts and uncles and my brothers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my brother lives in Italy, so like it was just getting to um, have a birthday celebration with family members, like huge extended family members around you. Like that was the best thing.
Yeah. Felt
And
like.
like
Yeah.
and sleeping on the floor with my cousins because we could have sleepovers. So those little
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Felt like you were connected to a family that cared and loved for you.
and they feel so guilty because I don't know all their names, but they know my name. You know, because like there's only so many of us in the U.S., but there's so many of them over there. Um, yeah,
I mean, look, my mom also does the same thing to me. Says like, "Oh, you remember your auntie and uncle from 2 years ago?" Like, no, no, I don't. I have many aunties and uncles and cousins on both sides of my family. What makes you think I'm gonna know what that phrase just meant, right?
yeah,
So the sentiment is understood.
yeah, and it makes me feel guilty. Like, and I know I shouldn't feel guilty because it's not really a reasonable thing because I don't have interactions with them and I don't have memories with them. So like, but still, you know, there's the there's this thing of being in the U.S. and having a level of privilege that makes me feel guilty for what I have versus what they don't have.
I understand where you're coming from. The way I approach it is that once I finally meet these people, I'm just gonna say, "Oh, hey, what's up? It's good to see you again," and just have fun with it. Just it doesn't matter if you don't remember them, but more so what you do in the moment. You try to make the most out of it. Try to say hi. Try to talk to them. Give them hugs. Give them kisses. All that good stuff. Because you may not remember them, but you can make the most out of the moment when you do see them.
Mm-hmm. And it's like an unspoken care, you know. There's, you know, it's really interesting. Like I think a lot of American culture can be such an exchange of resources, and when you go
Mm.
back to see your family in the Philippines, I feel like you just have that moment, you know, and you have the memory of being together, and that's plenty.
Right. It's transactional.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm not saying all of America is all like that, but feels like it sometimes, you know.
Totally. Totally understood.
Um, let's go back to you
Hmm.
and let's see what was teenage Lem like?
Teenage Lem was a quirky character that tried his hardest to fit in. So I barely knew myself, barely knew how to interact with people, was trying out different clothing styles, just learning how to develop an identity for myself when I was younger. So I
Tell me
was,
about your clothing like phases.
oh yes, oh my god, I was guilty of the swag phase when I was younger. So
What's
I actually, well, the hypebeast era back in the early 2010s,
okay,
like the
okay.
Supremes and like Vans and wearing checkered pants and like bright colors and like swag, all this stuff. I
You have do you have a photo of you with these checkered pants?
allegedly, um,
All right, I'm gonna follow up.
you know what I mean? Like there's a wristband that says "I love boobies," so I may have
Yeah,
aged myself.
that was a big thing. Like it was a breast cancer awareness thing, but like everyone loved wearing those in junior high and high school.
Right, right. The original intent has been lost, and everyone has co-opted it for their own personal gain.
Yeah,
Um,
as did you apparently.
as did me. I am guilty of those cardinal sins. Yes. Um, so I was guilty of that swag phase, but I was also friendly with a lot of people. I was able to talk to most people in different kind of clique groups, whether jocks, nerds, popular girls, just anyone and everyone. I was able to bounce in between these groups, but I never really stuck out or like belonged to our particular group. I do have a group of friends back in that day that were also like just average people. Honestly, the best way I could describe it is just average. Nothing really special about us. We're just there, like we just were present in the moment. And yeah, that's what I remember from being a young teenager.
I happen to know that you like skateboarding. So did you start skateboarding in high school?
No, I started skateboarding after high school, believe it or not. Yes, it's strange. You think as a young adult that's something you'd get into, but going back to the way I was raised, where I had a helicopter parent, I was also enrolled in Taekwondo at the age of 11. So I had been doing that for a very long time, and that was like the primary sport that I did outside of academics. And so at the a sport like Taekwondo, getting hurt while skateboarding is detrimental to that career. And so I couldn't skate. I couldn't do anything like any traditional team sports other than just martial arts. Which, looking back, I understand and I don't regret it. But most people would think that I had started way sooner before that. No, I actually started after high school, and that was just me and my friend Sean and a few others just bombing the hill behind the high school, going at full speed, just trying to break the sound barrier or something.
As young adults.
As young adults do, obviously. They transform into fighter jets. Yes. Shouts out Fleet Week in San Francisco. That was really cool.
Oh man, transforming into fighter jet.
Yeah.
So tell me about Taekwondo and like, what was that like? Did you enjoy it?
You know how, like, when you're a young kid and your parents tell you to do something and you just want to get out of there, but looking back as a grown up adult, you realize, oh, that was actually kind of fun. That's like kind of how I felt about it too. Doing all these like forms, all these like front snap kicks, all this breaking, all this sparring, all this like combination kicking, like in the moment it felt like I'm just going through the motions. I just want to get out of here. I hate this. I hate the instructors. I hate what I'm doing. I hate all this stuff. Um, but now that I'm 30 years of age and I'm looking back at the things I've done in my Taekwondo career, I realize the things were a lot of fun, and I use a lot of those things, believe it or not. I'm still kicking as high as I can up to my like head height.
Oh wow.
To this
And
day,
I'm
yeah,
pretty tall. Like
right.
people don't know that, but are you 6 feet tall?
I am actually 6 foot. Yes.
Yeah.
So, right as a long legs, and I'm pretty flexible as an adult. So all that rigorous training that I did as a young kid, that kind of like shaped my body to do like really high kicks, be super flexible, and it gave me a lot of discipline to just focus on my career, focus on the task at hand, develop like a discipline about like building good habits and setting myself up for the future. Because that's basically like what Taekwondo is. Like you start off with like basic minimal knowledge, like you do a front snap kick, then you build it up to um, roundhouse kicks, right? Like you just build off of like what you know, and then just get like continuously better, and you progress in that
What's
sense.
a snap kick, and then what's a roundhouse kick?
So imagine the front snap kick is where you just raise up your knee like this, and you snap it out front, and then go right back.
Okay.
So you hit something with like the
The
top of your foot like this,
Okay.
and go right back. Roundhouse kick is where you get your hips and you pivot on your bottom foot, and so you kick like this. It comes at like a angle, and you can change it to like a 45-degree angle. You can change it to a 90-degree angle, that sort of thing.
Okay.
But the point being is that like you take these concepts that you know and you build off of them to get something even bigger and better.
Hmm. I love hearing Lem talk about the things that he's like an expert at because he gets so excited and he breaks it down really quickly for me. Like this is just one thing, but I ask him a lot of random engineering questions sometimes. Like, how does this work, Lem? Explain it so kindly and well to me without demeaning me in the process.
Of course. I don't think there's ever like a dumb question, even more so like, oh, what does this acronym mean? Like, I don't demean anyone when they ask me these things. I think it's better to clarify things. A, a person who asks a question is a fool once, and if you never ask, you're a fool forever, right? So,
Ooh.
right, and that's kind of like the approach that I have as well. I want to give people these knowledge, these tips, tell people what it is to help them out because that's my approach. There's no such thing as a dumb question, and I like it when people ask questions. Like there's only knowledge to be gained from here.
Hmm. Okay, I have two questions to follow up on
Sure,
that. Why didn't you ever become a teacher?
I was actually.
What?
Yeah. So let me explain. What do I actually mean by that? Yes and no. The first job I had ever done in my adult life, well, the first job ever, was to be a Taekwondo instructor.
Okay.
So I had done Taekwondo for 6 years. I had earned the rank of second degree black belt to deputy, and I was approached to become an instructor.
So you're
And
like 17, like you started when you were 11.
I believe so,
Okay.
yes. That's around the time frame, yes. Um, and so I was approached to become an instructor, and that's where I learned how to teach people, how to be patient with people, how to teach different age groups as well. Because how you talk to a kid and what you do with the kid is totally different from what you do with a young adult, and is totally different from what you do with a senior citizen. And so you need to, if you need to teach a front snap kick, again, or a roundhouse kick, like what we talked about earlier, how you approach it to one age group is going to be completely different from how you approach a different age group. And that's kind of like the approach that I have when I explain things to people or I'm talking to them. Like I try to figure out like, okay, what do they know and like how old are they or like where are they coming from, so I can kind of craft my answer to help them out. So for you, when you ask me all these engineering questions, I'd assume that you don't know anything, but you're honestly trying to understand. So like I break it down into very simple steps so I can explain it to you and get my point across.
Yeah, I always appreciate that. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Taekwondo obviously taught you a lot um, about people and understanding them, as well as like your body and pushing it to its limits. It also sounds like it taught you a lot about patience um, and how, like, do you think it was mostly Taekwondo that taught you that? 'Cause whenever you like explain something to me, you're always really patient, and whenever we talk about random stuff, you're always like, okay, how do we understand each other? You know, where do you think you got that sense of patience? That I think anyone listening is like, it's very obvious. You know?
Yeah. I would definitely say Taekwondo was the main thing that taught me that. Um, Again, breaking down simple steps and just understanding that people come from different backgrounds. They may not know something, and maybe they do, and you kind of gauge like what level they're at. And it's kind of funny that I say all these things because actually, in my own personal life, I'm not a very patient person, or I was not when I was younger. I wanted things here and now, and I get frustrated if I just didn't like learn something right away. But then I realized that as you get older, learning new skills is pretty important, but it takes time. No one is ever good at something right away, and if you are, it's most likely beginner's luck, and that's not a real saving grace to learning anything or cementing a solid skill. So these days, I'm a lot more patient with myself when I'm learning new things or trying out different skills or meeting different people. It just takes time, as all things in life, really.
Mm. So wise, Len. So wise.
What can I say? Time teaches me all the things I need to know.
Um, yeah, I happen to know you can be impatient with yourself, but you tend to be very patient with other people.
Ironic, right?
Yeah, it's really hard to give ourselves the same grace we do others. You know.
Right. But if you don't, then you're a hypocrite, and I really don't like being that. So I learned to be patient with myself as well. And I'm happy to say that these days, especially like a few years ago, I'm a lot more patient now.
Mm. Okay, so let's go back into like I guess your life timeline.
Mm-hmm.
But you kind of mentioned a little bit how your parents like really wanted you to go to college, right? So what did that look like applying for stuff on your own? And like, did they always assume like, hey, we want you to go to college?
Yeah, they always assumed that I'd be going to college. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And the process looked very confusing. It looked very overwhelming. I remember just feeling overwhelmed a lot of the time when I was applying for FAFSA and applying for college, and then asking my parents like, "Hey, I need you to pay these like, mom, dad, I need you to pay these fees. Like, please pay me $95 so I can apply for these colleges." It felt overwhelming. It felt stressful. It felt a little bit degrading for myself because it's like I have to ask my parents for money. I feel like a loser. Um, but it's what I had to do. Honestly, if I didn't do any of that, I wouldn't have graduated college, and that's the one thing that my mom was asking out of me this entire time. So I delivered.
You did. So you went to UCSD, right?
Yes,
Did you apply anywhere else?
I applied for UCLA, UC Davis, UC Riverside, Merced, and UC Berkeley. I got I got into Riverside and I got into a few other colleges. I don't really remember at this point. I just know there's one other one. And I definitely got rejected by UC Berkeley, but I kept the rejection letter.
Why?
Something funny. Don't have a better reason.
I just did. That's why.
Listen, you're allowed to have one absurd act a week, and I chose it to be that one for that week.
What was your absurd act this week?
Good question. Oh, I do remember it. Halloween was this week, so I dressed up as a lion and went down a couple of blocks to Noe Valley and just went to a bunch of Halloween gatherings over there. There was just this gigantic block party that stretched out like three streets, and the police came to like help people in and out of the place. They were actually kind of courteous. They just wanted to make sure people were safe. That was a lot of fun. It was fun to walk around, grab some candy as a 30-year-old man with my girlfriend, and yeah, just relive that part of my childhood, really.
I like that. I like that.
uh,
Oh, and then Lem lives in San Francisco now. That's where No Valley is. One of the neighborhoods over there.
that's entirely right. Yep.
Okay. So, what did you pursue in college? In major and activities.
Yeah, so with my career at UCSD, which is only 2 years, I graduated the degree in physics, Bachelor of Science, of course.
Did you transfer
And
in
yes, I did. So I
community
was
college?
part of the community college circuit for 3 years, and then I got transferred into
Smart.
UCSD. Yes. So that's another thing.
So smart.
That is another thing. So remember how I said earlier that you don't really enjoy things while you're doing that. It's just like looking back that you realize the wisdom in those decisions. My mom had just really instructed me like, you got to go to community college first. We cannot afford to get you into university right away, but you will graduate college. Just you're not entering a 4 year institution right now. And I just remember being in those 3 years like completely disappointed. Just like I felt like a loser. I felt like nothing during that time.
Why?
But because all my peers in high school, they're going to college, they're having all these college experiences, doing all this crazy stuff. They're meeting people, they're getting girlfriends, they're getting boyfriends, they're getting this and that, going to parties. They're getting like the whole college experience, and I'm just like, well, I'm in this class with other bunch of degenerates, I guess. But you realize as an adult, like none of that really matters. No one cares of the parties that you went to 7 years ago, or like all the stuff you did in college, because none of that really matters. All you did was just develop an alcoholic habit, right? What matters there from that time is like the money that I had saved going to community college. I've been debt free for almost 5 years now, going on 6 or 7. Paid off my loans a little while ago, and I mean I have financial freedom other than like the reoccurring credit card debt that I get from like everyday activities. I don't have any debt, right? I'm financially free, and that's a lot more than most people can say.
Yeah. Colleges are expensive, especially in the U.S.
Right. So again, if I had gone to a 4 year institution, paid for tuition, paid for books, paid for all this stuff, took it all on loans, the debt I would have, I'd probably still be paying it off, if not a little bit, like almost done at this point. But that's years that I could have used doing other stuff. So again, looking back, community college was a frustrating time, but it was a good one. It was a smart financial decision. Again, I just didn't recognize it at the time.
Yeah. And then you did go to college, like to a 4 year institution after, so.
That's right. And I got a degree in physics. I met a bunch of cool people that I'm still friends with to this day. I keep in touch with people in high school, sure, but I've got a lot of friends that I have met in college, and I'm still in touch with them today. I'm going to give a quick shout out to Elmer Meja. He's a SkyWest pilot now. Congratulations on to him. And he was one of the skater friends that I had met in college, and we just stayed in touch ever since then. And yeah, I mean, just goes to show you, like, you just never know, like, who's going to stick in your life, or what good things will come out of the moments that you're in at the current
Mm.
situation.
Shouts to Elmer.
Shouts out to Elmer, the glue man.
Blue man in the sky, man.
Exactly.
Nice. Okay, so then finish off college, and what did you do after college? What did that like look like for you?
What everyone else's experience after college is if you're an average person. You struggle to find a job.
Mm.
Luckily for me, at the time I was at 85 degrees. I did that for a year, and then actually, so fun fact between us, I helped Vin get a job at 85 degrees,
Yep,
and we had worked as co-bakers at that time back in
yep,
2016, 15 to 16, that to
yeah.
17 era. Yeah. Um, yeah. So Vin was actually a baker, believe it or not, and so was I.
We made fresh bread.
We made
Um,
fresh bread, exactly.
yeah, I think I always worked the morning shifts because that just worked better with my schedule. I think you were in the
Hmm.
day shift, so we didn't like overlap very often. But Lem did help me get that job when I was like also out of college and being like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. What do I do?
Right. And if you're an average person, that's exactly what you went through. So that's what I did, right, leading up to graduation. Afterwards, I worked at Ballast Point, the big brewery in San Diego, for a couple of months while I was looking for like a job that made use of my degree. And that started a year long stint at HP as a engineering systems integration technician for about a year. I was very unfulfilled with that job. I didn't like it, but it was the start to the engineering career that I have now.
Mm.
And
And sometimes you have
yeah,
to take that first job to get you into your industry. And it might not be the thing that you actually wanted to, like you studied for.
yeah. Okay, so about that, that is a very humbling thing I had to learn when I was younger. It's that because I'm not a stellar student and I didn't get an engineering job right out of college, I had to slug it out in the technician realm. So I had to be a technician for like maybe like 2 years, I think, before like I became an engineer. And that's humbling to know that you have to start from the beginning and you have to build yourself up because when you graduate college, you know all this stuff and you kind of expect the world to just give you an engineering like job right away. Even people who have graduated with an engineering degree, they don't get jobs. In fact, I know a few people in my life who have gotten electrical engineering degrees. So like they actually have an engineering degree. I don't. And they still have not gotten an engineering job yet. They work as
Yeah,
technicians or because they've got other stuff going on and or they're really trying, but it's just not clicking. It's never really clicked for them.
yeah.
So I'm grateful for like the experience that I had learned and being taught the lesson that you have to like, just start somewhere, just start anywhere in the field that you
Mm.
want to do, and just work your way up.
Yeah. And something I want to like interject here with is like at my previous job where we serve first generation college students, being that they're the first in their families to go to college. But in most cases, in some cases, right, like Lem's parents both went to college, but they didn't navigate the US college system. So in a lot of ways, Lem is first gen because he was the first one to be like, yo, help me out with this FAFSA. Give me money for this app and trying to justify that to your parents as legitimate expenses and not just like a black hole of information. But in my previous job, we serve these students who are first gen, and we help them with a career plan. And we help them land internships each of the 2 years they're there. And those internships are really what land you a real job, like in your specific industry, because you already have that experience. And a lot of first gen students don't even know that they're supposed to like do internships. Like I didn't know how to do a resume until like I graduated college. That's not something that was taught to me while I was in college, even though you would think it was something that should be taught in college, like community college and in 4 year institutions. It's not. It's like really degree based, degree focused, not career focused.
Yeah.
And so, like, your life could have been like very different if someone had told you like you should get an internship in your field, right? Because it's not like there's not opportunities like that in San Diego, but unless someone tells you that, you don't know. Like no one in your family knows to tell you to do that. And then you come out and you're like floundering around, like finding whatever job will take you. Like that's how I felt, you know. Like I didn't know how to make use of my degree either. And it's one of those things that you don't realize you needed until like later when you're like, like you are much more established in your career now. And you're like, yeah, I had to start at the bottom because I just needed an entry point. There was nobody telling me like you need to do this and you need to do that. Here's how to like build a resume and all of that stuff. Um, but yeah, it's like knowledge that other people take for granted because they have families that have already been through this process.
That's right. I had hard feelings about all that, what you said as well, my floundering when I was younger, but I think those experiences have made me into a stronger, more resilient person because now I realize that I can do this stuff on my own. I can figure it out and I can get creative. I can get clever about how I go about things. Like if I don't know an answer right away, back then it was Google. Nowadays it's ChatGPT, which, by the way, ChatGPT has saved my engineering career.
What?
Yeah, of course. We use it all the time. There is a question we have, or we need to look up how to run like a shell script. We just type it in, like, how do I run this? All right, cool.
What's a shell script?
um, just some engineering stuff, just some programming stuff, but it's just an example. Yeah, or like, how do I create this like script? I'm trying to do this specific kind of like scripting action. How do I come up with the code for it? It would just give you it right away. It used to be like a long, complicated Google search, but it's no longer the case.
Oh, ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so then you were at HP for a little bit, and what do you think you learned about yourself then that you appreciate now? In that, 2 year, I think you said, process of like, this isn't what I want to do, but this is where I need to be.
I learned that I never want to have idle hands. I would be incredibly dissatisfied with my life if I was working at a job that didn't activate all regions of my brain because working there felt kind of brain dead. I remember there were weeks where I didn't go without work, and at that time I was working on an RF engineering certification from UCSD Extension because I talked to my friend Josh and
RF being radio frequency, in case people don't.
RF being radio frequency. That's correct. So I was working on a certification while I was at that job, and I it's an important life lesson that I learned in that moment because I learned that if I've got downtime, make the most out of it because that means you can focus on other things you're trying to do. Like you can focus on getting taking courses or like learning a different language or learning new skill sets. Like spare time that you have should always be used to do something better in your life. And that's what I learned at that time. I'm never going to have idle hands. I want to be engaged in the job. I want to do multiple things. I want to be multidisciplinary. I want to interact with different teams. I want to just move around and do. I don't want my like day to day to be completely the same. Like I want it to be dynamic. Like the general responsibilities are going to be the same, yes, but on a day to day basis, it's got to change for me. Like I'm doing something in the lab or like I'm moving stuff around. It's got to be active. It's got to be all sorts of things.
Where do you think this trait comes from within yourself?
Like boredom, honestly. I
Fear
imagine
of
doing this.
boredom?
Yeah, I mean, like, so my parents, like, they work at USPS, and my dad has been a mail carrier for the last 30 years. What does that really do? It's just him going into a truck, loading in mail, and just delivering mail to people's houses, and he plays music, right? And then he has lunch breaks and goes to the bathroom every now and then. Imagine doing that for 30 years. It's like very monotonous. It's like kind of just turn off your brain and say whatever, right? Um, I don't know. And my mom is also kind of like the same thing as well, works in a warehouse as well. Kind of repetitive behaviors. I personally don't like that. I find that very unfulfilling. And so I just look at that and just think like I never want to be like that. I want to have a dynamic life. I want to do many things. I want to learn many things. I want to come home. I want to go to a work where each day is going to be a little bit different. And That's where it all comes from, I would say. Now, I don't want to totally discredit what they're doing. To be working there for that many decades takes a lot of like discipline. It takes a lot of perseverance. It takes someone who realizes that taking care of their kids and providing for their family is a big thing, not like how I feel about my own career. It takes a lot of self sacrifice, which I do appreciate and admire. But again, it kind of taught me what I don't want out of my own career, out of my own life. So good and bad. Thanks to them, I kind of learned what I want to do.
And there's also just, there's a difference between your dreams and their dreams, right? Like, because to them, their careers have been providing stability, right? And that is enough for them because they didn't have that before moving here. And to them, that's already like the American dream. And because they did that, you have more space to dream. Like you have all of these. Like I know you have a lot of different hobbies because like you have space for that, you know. And I think that is the beautiful thing of providing like generational like stability for your family is every generation has different things they don't have to worry about, right? Or that they can explore about themselves. Like I think about my parents and how they don't really have hobbies. And it sounds like maybe your parents don't really either, right? Like, and I have space for hobbies, which is wild, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
I'd say that in the last couple of years, my parents have started to develop hobbies because I moved out. I'm largely self sufficient, and my brother is as well. My mom likes to be active, likes to walk around. My parents both like to travel now. So, like, my dad's traveling to the Philippines quite often. My mom is traveling with my aunties and uncles. So that's good. Like it, I will take any good thing from them, no matter how small it's going to be. Because again, growing up, they only focused on one thing, and that was the kids. Felt kind of overwhelming. Their jobs, same thing, day in, day out. So to see them break the mold and do something different, I'm happy for it. I support it. Go out there, go travel, go do something different because you're not getting any younger.
yeah. And I'm sure we'll feel different, like if and when, like you and I have children, and like we have to take care of a living being outside of ourselves. Because there's a lot we don't know also about our parents before us, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
before we stepped into their lives, what were they really like as people? I feel like it's
Right.
something they also downplay. At least my parents do. They're like, "Oh yeah, we used to do this." And I was like, "Wait, what? You're into that?"
Yeah. Oh yeah. I visited the disco once, and I thought it was okay. They'd all drink alcohol. I don't want to do it again. I'm like, okay, all right. You want to expand upon that?
Yeah. Or like my mom is like, you got to dance and you got to learn how to like me, right? And she's like, when we were kids, we didn't listen to music. We didn't have this, and I was like, oh damn, like that stuff was so different already. Like not having technology to play music and not having instruments around you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
wild.
my father, I found out recently that when he was younger, he would jump off of piers and go fishing.
Like with his bare hands.
No, I think he'd have some kind of like spear or something with him, but like he's
Oh,
jumping off piers.
okay. Oh, so like he would jump. Okay, he jump
Yeah.
off a pier with a spear in his hand and then catch fish.
Probably not. I may have misheard it because that's now that I say it, it sounds like incredibly dangerous. I think he would just jump off piers and go swimming, but then he'd also go fishing with spears like later on and like go fishing and just do a bunch of like fun stuff.
Okay.
And I'm thinking to myself like, huh, I get my dumb dangerous side from my dad, I think.
I was just gonna say, like, when you said that, I was like, okay, this sounds like Lem. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's something he would do. So this kind of makes sense.
No, it's complete. It's hilarious and kind of surprising because like growing up, like my dad doesn't really move much. He doesn't. I've never seen my dad run. He's like not a. It's like a very like stable person that's moving through the house. Like you never see him run or anything. And to hear all that is like kind of a jarring image because I've never seen my dad in that kind of light. To even hear about it is like almost in disbelief, really.
Yeah. Like,
Um,
are you my dad? Is that you?
or like, what happened? Oh, I can give you an answer to that. Having kids has happened.
Yeah. Immigrating to another country. Yeah,
Yeah, it'll do something to you.
that'll do it.
So
Yep, yep.
yeah. So shouts out to my dad. I respect what he did.
Mm. Um, so you're at HP for 2 years, and like
One
you got
year.
this 1 year. So
One
then
year.
you got this radio frequency certificate, um, engineering certificate. So what did you
Yeah.
do after that?
So actually, in parallel, I got employed by RF Lambda. It's a power amplifier design company in San Diego. I worked for them while I was finishing up this RF engineering certificate. And then I worked there for a couple of months because beforehand I had applied to Charlesware Technologies and I did like a whole 8 hour interview process with them. Very grueling, by the way. Uh,
That common in engineering, in the engineering world, like 10-hour interviews.
no, no. What I went through was anomalous, but it was good because every interview I've had since then has not affected me. I don't care what happens. I do not care how long if it's like 5 hours, easy, I'll do it. No problem. If they ask all these technical interviews, if it's a panel interview, no problem. I can do it. Because what I went through that day was some of the most mentally grueling like stuff I'd ever gone through in my life. Like imagine you have to take an entire day off and you talk to different people, like the vice president of engineering, like your future manager, your future coworkers, FPGA, software, HR. Like you talk to all these people, and while you're having lunch, you have your future manager like interviewing you while you're having lunch. So you're not really eating. You're just like, yeah. Here's what I did before this. And here's what I did before that. You know, like you're always on point for 8 hours, and they ask you like the same questions. It's like, oh, like why do you want this job? Or like tell me about this and that. And you have to do that for 8 hours. So it was very grueling, but I went through it, and I got a job from Charles for Technologies. It turned out to be one of the best jobs I ever had in my life. So from that point, no interview I've ever had has ever affected me since then.
I mean, yeah, there's no competition.
Yeah, nothing's ever going to top it.
Um, so we've talked a lot of bit about like your career after college. What was going on, I guess, in your personal life as well? You know, like what was it like to maintain friendships? And I think you moved out like shortly after college.
Yes. Yeah, I actually. Um, so at the end of my job at HP, I had gone through many life events within the span of 1 month. So I broke up with my then girlfriend at the time, or we split, I mean. I was getting laid off from HP. I got sick, and I moved out, all in the span of a month. So you can imagine the amount of stress that I had gone through at that one like focus point of time, right? And so my dad helped me move out, all the good stuff. And towards the end of that year, I also went through the 8 hour interview process at Trellisware. So just like in the span of 3 months, I was beyond the stress that I had gone through would be enough to kill an elephant, right? It's um, which is why I think nowadays I'm kind of more of a patient man because like nothing changes me, nothing affects me anymore. This is nothing to me at this point, for good and for bad, right? And so my personal life was like kind of tumultuous at the start of it when I started RF Lambda and Trellisware. I was learning how to live with roommates. I just remember when I'm talking to these people, like my first set of roommates back on time, I felt it felt super awkward to say good morning to people because we had never done that at my parents' house. We never said good morning to each other. We just walked through and did our stuff, right? And then the day would just go. But then like I had my roommates tell me, "Oh, hey, good morning, Lam. How you doing? You sleep well?" I'm like, "Why do you care?" That's how I felt on the inside. Yeah. Um, there was a lot of like personal growth and learning adjustments I had to do when I got this job, when I got these jobs. Over time, things have gotten better. I got a new set of roommates, moved out to another house in Mira Mesa. Uh, some of the best times of my life were in that house with my roommates. And then after that, for a couple of years, I got the job in San Francisco and I moved out. Now I'm here in the city.
Yeah, and like 'cause you mentioned moving out, so that was like your first time moving out. of my
Hmm.
parents' house, right? It was like after college.
That's right.
Um, yeah, and so like I dormed like my first 2 years of college, so it was like a lot waking up with so many people. You had less roommates than me, but I had like 13 house, like 13 people in my suite. Like we had to share a bathroom, and it was like so overwhelming. Let alone like the little what do you call those? Not politeness, the expressions that you tell people like good morning,
Greetings.
the niceties. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like not used to that small talk. I was like, who, what? Why are you interacting with me? I don't know you.
No, exactly, 100% what I was talking about earlier. The niceties, the greetings, like it took me back because why do you care? I've never seen that before. Never done that before.
Yeah. What do you? I know you like live alone now. What do you miss about living with roommates?
I do miss the daily interactions I had with my roommates, especially back in San Diego. Shouts out to Hector, shouts out to Joseph, shouts out to Trevor, shouts out to John. Um, just waking up and like on a Sunday or Saturday morning with no expectations for the weekend and just saying, "Hey man, what's up? Like, how you doing, man?" And just like sitting with my roommates on the dining table, not saying a word. Like we would just look at our phones, we just chill, or like we would just have conversations about anything and everything. And those were some of those mundane moments when I look back, like were some of the most important times at that household and our friendship, really. Because nowadays, like I'm close to these people. Um, Joseph's a great man. I really like that guy a lot. Love that guy. And but it was built on those like small interactions that we had, and I didn't know at the time that it'd be so meaningful.
Mm, yeah, I miss having roommates. I miss having like roommates my age that are like kind of in the same phase of life. You know,
Hmm.
because I live with my parents now, so
Yeah,
different phase of life.
I do not miss sharing a bathroom though. That was whack.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Right. With all due respect, like these guys, they kept a nice bathroom, and so did the ladies that I were roommates with at the beginning. They all kept nice bathrooms, but again, like sharing a bathroom still kind of sucks because you may not be on the same time frame as someone else. You get the point.
Yep, yep, yeah. My parents all wake up at the same time, and I'm like, I gotta wait. I gotta wait now.
That's right.
And it's not
I
even to like shower; it's the other stuff. I'm like, this is inconvenient.
exactly, exactly. I do
Um,
want to say though that having good roommates is pretty useful. I For my second house that I was living in Mira Mesa, all those roommates were people that I met at work, and it was really fun to go home and talk about work and not like feel drained about it, right? Because most people they say like after 5 o'clock, I don't want to talk about work, I don't care about it, it's not my life, I don't want to deal with it anymore. It was actually kind of fun to talk to my roommates on the different projects they were in because we were all different like sections in the company. Like we had a product
mm,
systems engineer, automated test engineer, I was a systems test engineer, and then we had another group as well, and we would just talk about like things that we were doing, and like we would just learn from each other. I found that to be like very enriching at that time because it helped me kind of like get a bigger picture of like what was going on with like trellisware. And it again that surprised me because you think you'd get tired of it, but no, not at all. Like I actually wanted to keep talking about these things at work because like it got me exposure to different projects and different things and different horizons that the company was going towards that I wasn't necessarily aware of with my function at work, with the narrow focus that I had to do for my function.
mhm. I think that just shows how much you all actually like your job, though. That you exchange ideas with each other after work.
Yeah, yeah,
You
honestly,
appreciate
yeah,
that. You know,
yeah,
that's
100%.
special.
Mm-hmm.
Um, okay, so you lived in San Diego most of your life, and you touched on this a little bit, but then you decided to move to San Francisco for a job.
That's right.
What propelled this decision?
Um, the biggest thing is that I had never left San Diego, so I don't know what it's like to live on my own. And I felt like there are things that you don't really know, you can't really learn until you move out. Like you don't really know how to be self sufficient until you move out of San Diego. What was convenient for me
Of
back
your
in the home
hometown, you mean?
of my hometown, exactly. What was convenient for me in the hometown of San Diego was that my parents were just a 30-minute drive away. So every other weekend, I just go back home and hang out with them and get free food from them. But that's, I mean, you get distance away from them, sure, but like it's not really true self sufficiency until you live out in a complete different city, 503 miles away from home. And that's where like I learned how to really soothe myself, really take care of things, and like be on top of my stuff every single day. Because San Diego kind of taught me that, but not all the way.
Mm.
Yeah.
And so you're in San Francisco now. You've been there this like after 2025 starts, like 2 years, right?
Yep.
So what's it been like? Yeah.
A lot of ups and downs, getting adjusted to a new city that you've never been to, feeling homesick, struggling to make friends, struggling to
Wait,
get.
you had never been to San Francisco before moving here?
Not really. Like I was back there in fifth grade, but what do you really know in fifth grade? Like what do you remember? Nothing.
Wait, okay, I might have forgotten this, but did
Yeah.
you move to a city you had essentially never been to?
Yeah, pretty much. Most people are like, "Yo, you should just visit the city, check it out once, and make sure you even like it." I'm like, "Nah, no, I'm good. I chase the job, not the city." That's actually like the main reason why, right? It's the job was pretty appealing at the time, and the city came afterwards. But I'm lucky that I enjoyed the city a lot.
Hmm.
I didn't think I'd ever like come to truly enjoy San Francisco, or like it kind of surprised me how much I enjoyed it, but I'm grateful for it. The city is amazing. It's amazing not to have a car to just drive around. You can commute to work with a bike or bus or walk. Like I can do all those things. And anywhere else, like that's not really going to be the case.
Yeah, there's only a couple of cities in the U.S. where you can do that.
I think San Francisco is the most walkable city in the US, with NYC being the close second.
I would argue Chicago because Chicago's flat, um, and San Francisco has hills.
I get the point as well, but for bikes, there's a lot of support for like public transportation and for bikes in the city. So like almost every restaurant that I know of like has a bike parking like lock station
Mm-hmm.
right outside. Every time there's a big event in the city, SF Bike Coalition like steps in and like they provide ample like parking and valet services for bikes to encourage like a greener city and public transportation and getting around. Um, and not to mention like again, you've got BART, you've got Muni, you've got a bunch of other services getting to and from the city. So I'm gonna stick to my guns and say San Francisco, but Chicago is also a very valid reason.
I mean, I lived there for 2 years, so I know that for a fact. Like we have all the stuff, the bike infrastructure and pedestrian stuff, and all of the things that you mentioned too. Um, I
Mm.
The only reason I vouch for Chicago more is
Yeah,
because of the geography, like the topography, not like the stuff that exists. Because like Chicago has all those things, but it is flat because it's in the fucking middle of Illinois. So
yeah,
there's no geographic like diversity. It's a love hate thing. It's one of the reasons it gets so cold because there's like no barrier from canyons and stuff for all of
yeah.
the weather changes. But it is nice to live in a city that's like flat and everyone can like walk on for the most part.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. I see your point. Those are valid as well.
Do you see yourself staying in San Francisco like longer?
Um,
How much longer?
don't know. I'll be honest with you because I never look more than like 2 3 years ahead of the future. I also apply the same kind of idea to my career. That allows me to have more opportunities and be open to new experiences as they come. Because if I choose to just like continue college, I'd be like a PhD graduate. Like I'm not really interested in that. Like I don't really want to do the graduate life. So I allow myself to be open to new opportunities. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been in San Francisco. And so the same approach I'll have for San Francisco as well. in the immediate future, like the next year or two, like I plan on being here. I think it's great. I like the city. I get to actually save money up for a car and for a house, believe it or not, living in one of the most expensive cities in the world, really. Yeah, but it's good. I like my life so far in San Francisco. I've got a routine figured out. I've got a loving girlfriend with me. Um, Things are going good, and I've also got a friend group. That's pretty good as well. And there's plenty of opportunity in the Bay Area as well. So I'm pretty satisfied for the most part, and I think I'm going to stay here for a little bit.
Yeah. So what would you call this chapter of your life?
Courageous curiosity.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to be courageous and curious to go outside of your hometown, which has had everything for you, to try something different, to learn more about yourself, to try a new job, meet new people, live in a different city, and do all these different things. It takes a lot of curiosity and a lot of courage to do that. And that's kind of the chapter that I'm in my life right now. Speaking of which, I just turned 30, so that's a completely different chapter as well. And the same rules apply there.
I like that. Courageous curiosity. Why don't we close off? Well, I guess I'm curious. Like, what do you want next in your career? What are you seeking in this next chapter of your life?
I'm seeking one specific thing. I need to touch up on my programming. I need to get better at that. I haven't really been coding most of my career, so like if you want to get to the next level, you got to know how to code. So I'm working on that right now, but in a more larger general sense, nothing really. I like being technical. I maybe become a senior test engineer again. That's kind of cool. Maybe explore a different engineering route. That's also cool. But the immediate future right now is to like learn programming and like get scripting down.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Why don't we close this off with a message you have for our listeners?
So don't be afraid to pick up new skills. Don't be afraid to start off from the beginning. Those are two important things that you need to get drilled into your head if you want to get anywhere in your engineering career, because unless you're a stellar student who got an engineering degree right off the bat, you're average. So learn to celebrate average more and learn to be average. Learn to work with that, which means starting from the beginning, learning all these skills, being a technician, that's fine, and work your way up, because you'll get to that. That's how you get to an engineering career if you didn't just get it right off the bat. The other thing I'd like to say is don't think too far ahead in the future. Try to keep yourself open. Unless you want to become a director or a CEO, like more power to you. But again, if you're average just like me, leave yourself open to new opportunities. Don't think too far ahead of the future and learn to enjoy the moment. Like when I was younger, I used to resent the situations I was in, the things that I did. But then I realized looking back, they were pretty instrumental and they were pretty useful for the person that I came today. So try to be present in the moment. Try to make the most out of the situation that you're in. Try to take up new opportunities and try to just be present.
Cool. That was a lot of messages, but I hear you on all of them.
Well, I mean, I wish these were things that I had learned when I was younger. So more power to them.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
That's all I got, Lem. So thanks for being on the podcast. I enjoyed our conversation as I always do.
Thanks for having me, Ben. I really appreciate you as well and being on this podcast. Yeah.
Is there anywhere people can find you or if you want to be found?
That's right. Go to my Instagram, part-time hater. Look me up for the funniest content on the gram.
Lem, for the people that are just listening, Lem just did like the most Uncle Sam thing. He's like finger to follow his Instagram, like right. It's very on brand. All right, I'll add that in the description. Lem's part-time hater Instagram account.
Yep.
Thanks for being here, Lem. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you as well as you, Ben. Thanks for having me on, and let's have a blessed Sunday.
Okay. All right.
And thank you for listening to this episode of Creating Your Conditions, a work of understanding conditions we are given, forged from, and we have yet to face. You can follow us on Instagram at Creating Your Conditions, which you can also find in the description of this episode. My name is Van, and it's been my pleasure to be your host. Keep creating, and I'll catch you in the next episode.